So I want to make a sprite which has got a limited lifespan. This might be useful in terms of what you actually do in your project, but also I think the ideas are going to be helpful anyway, because we're going to do it with a separate class that we've done in the past. So just to quickly look at what we're doing here, I've got this little program, and when I press a key, it makes a coin, and you can see it's got a random XY position and change x equals 1, which is making it move across because we've got coin list.update. So what I'm going to do to make each coin have a timer as well, because sprites, this arcade.sprite thing, does not have a timer built into it, I'm going to extend it. So we're in a separate class. Rather than try and remember the exact syntax of this bit, which we will have when we create a sprite from a class, I'm going to copy it from another project. You could just as easily copy it from Python arcade examples, and renaming this to timed sprite. I'm going to do a little bit of fiddly work to make this behave itself. So the idea is when I press a coin, instead of making an arcade.sprite, I'm going to make a timed sprite from this thing up here. So let's remove this and make this timed sprite. And I want the things that we have made to manage itself. So I'm going to take this lot, which is like things like setting its position and speed and things like that, cut that out of there and paste it into the init up here, and fix the indentation, because we always have to fix that. And now when we're up here, we're no longer like down here, we make this coin, all right, and we can talk about this coin by appending it to the list, for instance. That is made from this time sprite. When we are within the coin, we are not referring to it as a separate thing, we're actually in it, so it's self. So self dot, self dot, self dot, and self dot. So I think that'll work, won't it, as it stands? If not, we'll learn something, I'm sure. So hit the play button when we get around to it. Yep. So it's working exactly the same as before, but all of the logic that we had, which wasn't exactly much, it was just setting parameters, has been moved into this separate thing. What this means is we now can do things like, for instance, add parameters which don't exist in a normal sprite. So self.timer, for example, is just a number that I'm making up, starts at 0, and this is the thing we're going to count up to 1 second. And we're still going to have this coin list.update, because this inherits from sprite. That's the .update, automatically applies the change x to it. But I'm going to create another function as well called def update timer, just to keep things separate. It's not the only way to do this, it's just the way I've chosen to do it. And what's going to happen is self.timer, we're going to increment it by a value. And of course the question is, what value are we going to add on each time? Well, the value is how long was it since we were last here. And we know this is going to be called every frame. It's going to be called in the on update, and it's going to be this delta time thing. We know that delta time is always the amount of time since we last were in this function. So delta time is going to go there, and it needs to be given that. So self, and we always have to put self there, and self and delta time. So all we need to do now is make sure this is called all the time. So again, in onUpdate, we're still calling the actual update for the function, which is for the sprite, which is the built-in sprite update function. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to say for coin in coin list, and I'm going to tell each individual coin to update its own timer. Okay, and self.coinList, that's what that's underlined, self.coinList. So each one is going to update its timer. So self.timer plus equals delta time. And while we're here, let's just say if self.timer is greater than 1, this is our 1 second, we're going to say it's self.kill. So that will just destroy the sprite. It's destroying itself. So if we hit space, we should have everything working as before, or hit any key when we run it. So it makes a sprite and it crashes. Did I forget to give it delta time, did I? Coin.update timer, it needs delta time, doesn't it? And I forgot to give it to it because it's asking for it here, so I need to give it to it here when I call it delta time. Misspelling here when I call it. For each coin, when I call the update timer function, it needs its delta time. Try that once more. Instructive little mistake, I feel. So this time I hit the space key and they all exist for 1 second. Okay, so of course each sprite could be given a random value to go up to. This is hard coded at the moment. It would be an exercise for you to think about having sprites of different time lengths before they get destroyed. Hope that's helpful.